hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Phil. Let me say, of all those jobs, the most difficult was first selectman. Because at midnight is usually when somebody has to get the cat out of the tree. And so I think I understand that job, and you do yours very well. In 1968, a young man from Greenwich, Connecticut, having spent a couple of years as first selectman and a few years in the state legislature, decided to run for the Congress of the United States. And got the Republican nomination to run against the incumbent Democrat, Don Irwin. It was at the time of the Vietnam War. Don Irwin was a Johnson pro-war Democrat, and I was against the war. We both knew that we would either win or lose on the basis of that issue, and neither of us tried to obfuscate it. That was the issue. As matters turned out, I won, he lost. But the reason I cite that story is so that you all understand that we have had a huge sea change in American politics. The name of the game today is electability, not accountability. And that has changed the landscape in which we operate. My presence here today has to do with the war, the war, the war. And thus my support for Ned Lamont, who had the courage to speak out very clearly against it. I realize there are many other issues, but I'm sure Ned will elaborate on them. But I am not a Democratic activist. Leave that to my wife. I am an anti-war activist. Many months ago, I announced my resolve to leave my evening TV set and do everything possible to bring this insanity to an end. And no, and I want to repeat this since I've used the pejorative, seen the pejorative used, I am not some left-wing nut or liberal crazy. These kinds of words came into being, as I recall, from Mr. Karl Rove and the present administration. But now apparently they're used on both sides of the aisle. I am an American of common sense who can recognize failure and pig-headedness. I am an American of moderate view who can see our entire nation hoist itself on an ill-conceived foreign policy petard of its own making. I'm a former serviceman who objects to the misuse and overuse of our military to the point of leaving the United States denuded as against any other military threat. I I'm an idealistic American who is ashamed to see the U.S. flag dragged through the muck of Abu Ghraib, Haditha, Guantanamo, and other human rights transgressions. I am a grieving American, witnessing the death of 2,500 young men and women, the wounding of 18,500 men and women, and the death of over 300,000 Iraqis, mostly women and children. I am a fiscally responsible American who wants to know where $1 trillion has gone. I made comments prior to the Democratic convention when I heard that all the big city delegations were going to vote for Ned Lamont's opponent. And I asked the question, why would you do that when the money that should be going to your cities and your education and your health care is nowhere to be seen and still isn't? And for all those here that think this is a war in the Middle East and it doesn't impact us here, believe me, there is no money in this country. There's what is being spent there. Yes, when Connecticut looks at itself on Iraq, I want to see a new face. The old one in the mirror portrays everything that went wrong. And quite frankly, that face should be held accountable. I know government today is all about electability at any cost. But the cost of Iraq is too high a price to pay for political comfort. Ned Lamont portends a new future for all of us. A new future on Iraq, on health care, on education. His opponent can only equate the mistakes and the horrors of Iraq to a cartoon. Not good enough. Please vote for my friend Ned Lamont. I have the good fortune to introduce Emily Lamont. I say the good fortune, and I'm really not telling you the truth. She is presently a resident student at Harvard. I am a Yale man. So I don't know why I'm making the introduction. But I am, and I know one thing, she's a beautiful young lady. Emily.